Good morning. Good morning and welcome to worship from the parish house of our Old Ship Church, First Parish in Hingham, Unitarian Universalist. I can't see you, but you're looking at me, and we are all together wherever we might be, and it's good to be together. You are all welcome to this time of worship and to our community. Two quick reminders before we continue. On our Old Ship website, oldshipchurch.org, you'll find two ways to help out. First, there are many ways to help out those in particular need during this time, whether through food pantries, shelters, healthcare, and at the very bottom of our homepage, you will find a list of things and how to contribute to, again, pantries, shelters, and other helpers. And also on our homepage, you will find ways to contribute to our congregation, still with our own financial needs to keep our community strong and to be able to serve others. So you'll be able to find that as well at oldshipchurch.org. Once again, welcome this morning to worship. Welcome.
Come, come, whoever you are,
Come, whoever you are, wanderer,
caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, despair. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderers, whoever of leaving, wanderer, caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, despair. Come, yet again, come.
Thank you, Christopher. Prelude in D flat major by Chopin. Thank you. We have gathered for worship in this so-called virtual space, but we are truly gathered, truly are together, for distance avails not. Nothing virtual about this. For we are together in the spirit of love, holding one another, caring as best we can for all those in need, embraced by the one Spirit of life, God of many names and beyond all names. And may the flame of our chalice, the flaming chalice of Unitarian Universalism, flame of truth, of freedom, of community, of love. May it remind us of all that we share, wherever we may be on this one blue-green earth. In the spirit of familiar words from Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, during these opening days of Ramadan, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. I light our flaming chalice to remind us of that field, that place where we are all one. We have entered the month of Ramadan for Muslims, and we're going to sing, Christopher is going to sing a song for the season called Ramadan Kareem. Ramadan Kareem simply means generous Ramadan, and it catalogs, as you'll hear, some of the virtues meant to be nourished during Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem.
Sacrifice and rid all grief, and think about all those in need. We celebrate with family, it is a time for charity. We do not eat or drink all day, not to cost we fast and pray. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Kareem. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Kareem. Feel free to sing it with the refrain. Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan.
Ramadan Kareem, generous Ramadan. In honor of Ramadan, I've chosen many selections this morning from the Sufi Muslim poet, familiar to many of us, the most popular poet, apparently, in terms of publishing in the United States these days, maybe around the world, Rumi. And I'm going to share a story that most of us perhaps never associated with Rumi, but he retells it. Came originally from India and then into the Middle East and then around the world. And Rumi told the story in his own way. Many of us first learned it as the story of the blind men and the elephant. He tells it as the elephant in a dark room. We'd have to imagine a very big dark room. And here, paraphrasing a little bit, is how Rumi told the tale. And imagine that some folks brought an elephant into our lives, and we had never seen an elephant before. And they put the elephant in a dark room. We hadn't seen it yet. And they invited us in one by one to figure out just what kind of creature, what kind of animal this was. Well, the first goes in, one of us goes in and happens to touch the trunk to begin with and says, well, this creature is like a big water pipe. Well, another one goes in and touches the ear. Says, this is a big flapping kind of animal. Very strong, always moving back and forth like a fan. Another goes in next and touches, kind of grabs hold of one of the legs. And, oh no, this creature is like a great big post on a temple, a pillar. That's the kind of creature this is. Another goes in and touches the back and the side and says, oh no, this is a creature. It's like a great big leathery throne. And finally, the last person goes in and touches the tusk. Says, no, you're all wrong. This is a little bit like a sword, like a smooth, polished, rounded sword. Well, of course, none of them had the full picture because none of them saw the entire elephant. As Rumi tells the tale, he says, well, if someone had brought in a candle to light the darkness, then we would have seen a whole elephant for what the elephant truly is. Here ends the story of the elephant in the dark room. Christopher, comfort me. A hymn, comfort me.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, oh my soul.
We have arrived at our time of sharing joys, sorrows, concerns, and lighting candles for the joys and sorrows that have been shared and that I will share with you and that we might hold in our hearts. Several of you have asked that a candle be lit on your behalf. I light this first candle on behalf of Connie Gorfinkel. She asked for a candle for resilience, and particularly for those who are feeling and who are very alone during these days. A candle for resilience. Ellen Curtin asked for a candle for her brother-in-law who was hospitalized this week and is now home. It was not for COVID-19, but a candle of concern and hope for her brother-in-law Steve and his family. Laura Harbottle asks that a candle of concern and prayer for the safety of all the medical personnel taking care of COVID-19 patients, especially those personnel that we may know personally. For Laura, this means her cousin Peter, who is an ER doctor in New York, and for her long-term primary care physician, Kathy Tong. Daveline Cooper asked for a candle in honor of the life of Anthony Delicio, who was the father of Daveline's good friend, Marianne Bourne. Anthony, Daveline writes, had a wonderful life. He died on Thursday at the age of 95. He had lived with Marianne and her husband Jeff here in Hingham for the past year and a half. Daveline notes that everyone who knew him will really miss him. We offer our sympathy for all those who mourned his loss. And Karen Schneider asked for a candle of joy for Max's birthday, which is this Wednesday. Happy birthday, Max. And even as we share and feel in our hearts the hopes, the joys, the concerns, the grieving that is expressed in these candles, we light this final candle for all those joys, sorrows, or concerns unexpressed this morning. That we know deeply felt, and this candle burns for the health, the well-being, and the safety of all. We enter our time of meditation, of prayer and silence. Pausing, slowing down, breathing into this moment, breathing into full presence, body, mind, and spirit. Feeling our shared presence in spirit, feeling held by the love we have for one another, and by the love that embraces all. Feeling deeply the ways in which we're connected to all of our sisters and brothers on this planet we share, no matter our various religions, colors, opinions, political persuasions, one human family, one family of life on earth. And as we breathe into this profound experience of interdependence, imagine it. Imagine all the ways we are connected one with another and with life. From this imagining, from this reality, our hearts' yearnings arise. Prayers from and to the God of our hearts, God of all blessings. Prayers for all those in need of help and healing these days for whatever reason. For those who are ill, those who are hungry, those facing financial hardship. And prayers of gratitude for all the helpers, all the leaders, helping and guiding us through these times. May we pause in silent communion wherever we are, whoever we are, whatever our circumstances, in communion one with another and with the Spirit of life. I don't know about you. During the meditation, I found myself indeed reflecting on imagining where we all are. I know where I am, sort of right here, but I imagine those in homes. I know where many of you live, in Hingham or at Linden Ponds, here in Hingham. I'm aware of some of our own family members scattered here and there across the country, and others, Old Ship folks who have moved away or who are away, and I'm imagining where you are. It's quite lovely, isn't it, this community across space. A few readings from Ramadan. Ramadan, to put it colloquially, is meant to be a month of reflection on what is truly important in our lives, including such virtues as patience, compassion, generosity, charity, virtues which, for Muslims, are expressions, as we express those virtues, are expressions of our love for Allah, for God. So for Ramadan, I've chosen a few verses from the poetry of Rumi, from whom we heard earlier already, twice. And it seems to me that these particular verses suggest this direction, asking such questions as, what do we really want? And what do we really love? Here's the first. O moon-faced lover, the fasting month of Ramadan has come. Tie up some tight knots in your tablecloths. The upward path towards reaching God has just become wide open. Doesn't matter if you're a clueless wanderer or a spiritually detached individual, this is the perfect month for you to come back to God. And then a few more brief verses. Give up wanting what other people have. That way you're safe. What can I say to someone so curled up with wanting, so constricted in his or her love? When you eventually see through the veils to how things really are, you will keep saying again and again, this is certainly not what we thought it was. And finally this, let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love. Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love. Here end the readings. Be ours a religion, musically.
Be ours a religion, was everywhere. It stumbled all space. It shrined the good art. Its creed of truth. Its ritual works of love. We are the religion. We are the religion of love.
Thank you, Christopher. Have we not been enjoying Christopher's music these weeks? Well, and the months before that too, of course. Thank you. I'm not, of course, a Muslim, but I've long been inspired as I reflect on some of the essential practices and tenets of Islam. And one of those practices is, of course, the fasting enjoined for the month of Ramadan. As most of you know, during Ramadan, one is not meant to eat or drink from dawn to dusk. And because Islam follows a lunar calendar, so Ramadan moves around the solar calendar. And a season like this, when we're close to the longest days, it's a particularly challenging, even arduous task, especially if you live in a warm climate. And this physical discipline, whatever the season, is meant to be accompanied by spiritual disciplines of prayer and charity. That charity might mean, for those who are able, it can take the form of donating a meal each day, the meal that you're foregoing, to those who are hungry not just during Ramadan, but much of the time. Charity. In short, one is meant to practice, to put it simply, to practice being a better human being. Reorienting from the usual ways of the world, the getting and spending that lay waste our powers, as the poet Yeats put it, the wanting what other people have, as we heard Rumi say it, which, as he also said, constricts us in our love. This wanting what other people have constricts us in our love. Or to put it yet another way, reorienting to more fundamental realities, to how things really are. Again, Rumi's words. Well, it seems to me, perhaps you are already reflecting in this direction, it seems to me that our required social isolation and distance during the pandemic offers a Ramadan-like experience for us, one we haven't chosen, but it has come to us, an opportunity if we choose to take it. This is not to be dismissive at all of the real suffering that so many are experiencing. But it can be a sort of spiritual opportunity for many of us, not to fast from eating and drinking from dawn to dusk, but to use this enforced time apart from others, apart from our usual routines, fasting, if you will, from those usual routines, and instead reflecting on how things really are, on what really matters, and what maybe matters less than we habitually think. To reflect also on the injustices and inequities in our social order, injustices we do not have to accept as if they were a fact of nature, but could in fact work to change, help to change. Now, such reflections could be seen certainly as an expression of privilege, possible for those of us who are not suddenly without a job or ill, or not wondering day to day how they can put food on the table for themselves and their families. And so, to a certain extent, this is, of course, true. It is a kind of privilege. But maybe this is all the more reason for those of us who have this and other forms of privilege to seek to serve others and to seek to transform the social order on the premise, the reality, that we are all in this thing called life together. This is how things really are. We are all in this thing called life together. One of the most beautiful and iconic images in the world of Islam, and if you've never seen photographs, make sure that after the service you find one. It's so beautiful. One of the most beautiful and iconic images in the world of Islam is the image of thousands of pilgrims in Mecca circling the holy Kaaba. The pilgrims are all dressed in white robes, making distinctions of wealth and poverty, of where you are, your social position, of country of origin, and so on, invisible. Instead, circling the Kaaba as representatives of one humanity, one family. Circling the Kaaba as we all circle the sun, one family of life despite or because of within our differences. This is how things really are. I think this is in the spirit of an often quoted verse from the Quran. O humankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, it goes on, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. We might say, is those who are those who reach across those divisions of tribe and people. So it's actually pretty simple, isn't it? Although, as with many simple things, easier in the saying than in the doing. Look, part of me misses the way things were just several weeks ago. The usual routines of my days and my weeks, the usual ways of doing things when it comes to my work as minister. Worship, classes, meetings, and so on. Actually meeting in this room with a whole collection of 20 or 30 people. Can't we just go back to all that? Well, the answer is no. We can't. Maybe someday, I hope someday, some weeks or months or years hence, we'll go back to some of those routines and ways of doing things, or maybe the routines and ways of doing things as we knew them will be forever changed in ways we cannot predict. Changed in many cases for the better, maybe. In any case, it does no good to simply wish our way back to how things were, whatever the circumstances of our lives. Better, I have to tell myself, and maybe you do too, better to breathe into how day to day we are now. This fasting, so to speak, from the usual ways we do things, and instead to use these strange and different days to seek to see more deeply into how things really are, to get in closer touch with what and with whom we most deeply love, with how we most deeply would like to live more completely, to be of use in this family, not only of humanity, but of life, to be of use, doing our small part, certainly in the midst of coronavirus, to send a contribution if we can, or to offer a helping hand, and in the larger view, to move us all towards a shared life as time goes on, a shared life more closely aligned with compassion, with justice, with the ways of the earth, our home, all with love. Returning as I close, or come to close to a close, returning to the ancient story of the elephant in the dark room, among the many meanings we can take from that story is this. We each have only a partial view of the world, a little slice of a view of the nature of life. So though, yes, the image of pilgrims in Mecca, almost indistinguishable from one another, is beautiful and holds the great truth of our one common humanity, it's also true that we each bring different gifts, different views of what this thing called life is all about and how to make meaning out of it. So we need the perspectives and the gifts of every individual, of every nation, of every religion. We need it all in order to get a little closer to the whole picture of how things are in this life we share, and together to share the great work of creating a true and beautiful community of life, in the spirit of life as it truly and most deeply is. Which brings us to singing together. I hope you'll join. Many of you, perhaps most of you listening, know Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. Christopher and I will sing it. and we hope that you'll join in if you know it. Whoops. It would help if we're both playing in the same key, so I'm going to make sure we do that. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the sermons of compassion. Blow in the wind, guide in the sea, move in the land, giving life shape of justice, roots holy grows, things set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Closing as we began with more words from Rumi. What is praised is one. So the praise is one too. Many jugs being poured into a huge basin. All religions, all this singing, one song. The differences are just illusion and vanity. Sunlight looks slightly different on this wall and a lot different on this other one, but it is still one light. May the one light of love lead us all through these days we share. May the one light of love lead us all through these days we share. Be well, be safe, take care of one another, and together may we take care of our earth home. God bless. Blessed be. Amen. We extinguish these lights, these flames, all lit with love and deep concern and compassion. But we cannot extinguish the love, the compassion, the care Those go with us wherever we go. May it always be so. Blessings upon you all.